Howdy folks, we're looking at Edge Magazine issue 50, that's right, you can tell by the cover, and this would be October 1997, and of course featuring the future of interactive entertainment. So this is a special cover. Now as you can see, mine is not in very good condition. Actually, I almost had to get this out of the trash because I actually threw away this before, but I knew I still had it. You see, this is just the cardboard cover for the magazine proper, and this is how I'm going to store it in the bookcase because I think that looks nicer. So yeah, they've been around for 4 years now, 50 issues. Normally it would be a CD to go with this, but I've never had that. I got this secondhand on eBay. Let's take a look at issue 50. So we have a cake on the inside. Here we see the contents of the CD, which are mostly previews of games. Oh good, it's zoomed in. But also, you can talk with Dave Perry. On the inside, we see the first 50 issues of Edge. What's interesting is that they also feature issue number 0, which I don't have. Hopefully, we can look at it later on in another edition. Okay, so the opening column is about how so much has changed the last 4 years. And the future is almost here. I love that. Wish they used that again. So, let's see. I'm using another construction to hold the magazine. Let's see if it works. Okay, so Project X is announced, and this is would go on to become the Nuon by VM Labs, which was a fancy chip for DVD players, but it could also play games like Jeff Minter's Tempest 3000. At the time, it looked like it was going to stomp Mario. Jeff Minter raves about the possibilities of the graphics. So let's see. We have PowerVR card dropping its price to compete with 3DFX, if I'm correct. Yeah, so SNK having their 64-bit model with Samurai Spirits, round trip RV. This never became a huge thing. Here's a page that's only talking about the upcoming events. So there's no news on the events. It's just speculation of what we'll be seeing at the JAMA and at the Tokyo Game Show 1997. So that's not that interesting. More lackluster news. The Saturn will not be having Virtua Fighter 3 as originally planned. And pirates are copying pre-released versions of games, so that's also a problem. Well, what did you expect? So the news this month is not that interesting. Final Fantasy VII selling really well. Well, how about that? Violence. There's some report, but there's no news on the report itself. So video game violence is still not completely understood. And is this news about Maxis or something? I don't know. Okay, so here's the contents of CD2 again. You have Dave Perry, a whole list of instructions. Apparently there's a dance group who was influenced by... Give me one moment. I'm going to move this plant away because it keeps scratching my head and it's making me annoyed. Okay. There's this dancing group influenced by Tekken, and Edge acts rather cynical about it. You're not allowed to rent Nintendo 64 games, apparently. There's a virtual aquarium you can purchase by NEC. So talk about Rob Hubbard. Where is he now? Well, he made fantastic music for the Commodore 64. You should check out games like, I can never remember them, Sanction, and there was this other game, some kind of shooting game. You go from left to right, short name. Anyhow, he made good Commodore 64 music, and they ask, what is he doing now? Well, he's not making that much music anymore, even though he did do some on Nuclear Strike, but mostly he's a music supervisor and helping out with music technology. So these are the games Edge played the most the last 4 years, and we see what's interesting is Puzzle Bobble. I prefer Dr. Mario, but I get it. And these are the hot and nots of the last 4 years, with Atari and Rise of the Robots being the losers, and of course Sony and retro gaming being the winners. Okay, the new media. What can you get? D-ROM? Oh, I haven't read these. Well, this is based on a game show which was popular in the 90s. Plasma TVs. Back in 1997 already. They wouldn't become mainstream for another 10 years. Let's see. Edge didn't like this book, but they did like this book. So you can look at the titles if you like. I don't feel like talking about them. Yeah. So there's going to be a cafe where you can play online games. At the time, that seems special. And also, here they show a game which you can play online against other people with how many people? 32 players at once. At the time, that was really something really new. It's called Stratagem, I think. So Japan, now totally into Pokemon, as they still call it Pocket Monster here. And Edge is very cynical about its popularity. They would never review the game. Yeah, they act like it's a waste of time and it's kiddie and stuff. And they talk about how nice it would be if the Pokemon and the Tamagotchis could beat each other into oblivion. There's also Pocket Fighter by Capcom, which is the cutesy and fun version of Street Fighter. Hey, Ken Kutaragi gets a thorough interview. I think this is in Hawaii. He moved there for the PlayStation 2 project with a lot of other people. So there's a lot of talk about how he originally made the PlayStation. He doesn't want to say too much about what he's doing with the PlayStation 2. And he keeps saying about how PlayStation 1, because it was simple to program for, and that it was a good price, and it still had good graphics. Well, it was indeed excellent. And he's not that worried about the Nintendo 64 taking over. And he's quite positive about everything. He also says that games like Tekken 2 only use 30 to 40% of the PlayStation's power. Well, I wonder how much Tekken 3 did, but he says that Tobal 2 used 90% of its power. I don't know. It's not an indication if a game is good or not. Okay, more Ocarina of Time. In the pre-screen alphas, F-Zero, Yoshi's Story. Is this called? This is Lunatic. I thought it was Forsaken. Screamer Rally. Some pictures to get excited about. Holy Magic Century. I don't remember that game. Ground Effect apparently. Barrage and Marvel Super. No, it's X-Men vs Street Fighter. Okay, so Sentinel Returns. I love the name of this game. The original game was called The Sentinel, and now it's Sentinel Returns. And I think that name just strikes a chord with me. I don't know if that's with you, but it sounds so foreboding. The game is also very foreboding. I mean, it's abstract. This is the PlayStation 1 version, and it has fantastic music, a bit like Mike Oldfield, if I recall correctly, very atmospheric. And the goal is to climb the mountain, trying not to be seen by the Sentinel who's at the top. An old Commodore 64 and Spectrum game, now re-released for the PlayStation 1, and quite a cult hit, but it's only 10 euros on eBay, I found out, so you can still get it. This version only has 666 levels, unlike the original, which had 10,000 levels. Apparently, the original maker never thought anybody would ever beat the original game. Okay, War Games, made by MGM. Oh, look, I was still supposed to look up these games, so I don't know much about this other than this preview here. Yeah, it's all polygons, so it doesn't seem that interesting, to be honest. Ultimate Race Pro by Callisto, a French maker. Well, that wouldn't become a big hit either. It's for the PC. Tenchu, this would be a cult hit, one of the first stealth games. I always found the controls to be rather awkward, and it sprung a series. Here's Gunbike. Now, if I recall correctly, recently there was a game that had the same premise of bikes turning into robots to fight each other, and that was a really bad game. This one's made by SCEI and for the PlayStation. Silhouette Mirage is a game by Treasure. Oh, I should have really looked this one up. I'm sorry, folks. I wish I could tell you how good this game is. It's for the Saturn. It's by Treasure, and that would be enough for people to say, take my money. But I don't know much about the game. It looks good. It's a bit like Mischief Makers. Shadow Master by Cynosis. Yeah. Again, I don't know much about this game, so I'm sorry, folks. I didn't do my homework for the preview section. Maybe I'll be able to tell you later if it's good or not when the games are finally released. Sonic Wings Assault. Sharing the name with the SNK game, but this is a 3D version. It's for the Nintendo 64 and was not a hit, I can tell you that. Hyper Olympics in Nagago 64. Well, made by Konami. It's another sport butting bashing game. Here's Witcher. Now this game, of course, we knew. 1997 preview screens. You still see Gerard with the white hair, and they talk about how the story is very adult and based on the fantasy book, so you can read it for yourself here. Zooming in. Yeah, consider this will go on to become a cult classic, and Witcher 3 is one of the best RPGs ever made. Here's an extended look at Grand Theft Auto, and I didn't learn anything new, but at the time they're relishing the idea of just having the sprawling city. Here's a picture of the map of the first city. So you have suburbs and the harbor, lots to do, and lots to blow up. And the makers, they seem to be on the defensive because they're defending how the violence isn't really that big of a deal, and that people should instead be spending the time and energy otherwise than criticizing games. Yeah, we all know the Grand Theft Auto formula. You go around, take missions, and usually you beat up something or drive a car around here. Well, almost everything you did in Grand Theft Auto 3 you could also do in Grand Theft Auto 1. Lots of weapons, lots of vehicles, lots of space to try it all out, except the third-person perspective made it all that much better. Now here's an odd article. It's about PC games made by Sega, like Virtual On, which looks really good. And there's a lot of technical talk about whether or not the Model 2 and Model 3 boards can fit onto the PC. And Virtua Fighter 2 had a hard time, but some games are already released, like Sega Rally Championship and Daytona USA. They worked pretty well for the PC. These games didn't sell in very big numbers, so I don't know why they spent 3 pages on them. Then again, Sega was really cool back then. Here's a look at Shiny, who were at the time working on Messiah, and also this other game, which I had completely forgotten, called The Wilds 9. I forgot to look up if it ever got any good reviews. Messiah was a flunk. The idea was very novel, that with your angel you can go around and teleport into people, and well, you could do funny things with them. It had very impressive graphics, and they're comparing it to the Quake 2 engine here. There's also talk about the RC Chopler game, which is at the time still called Fly By. So only 2 people made it, and yeah, it's more like a toy, as they call it. Fly By Wire at the time it's called, and I think it was released as RC Copter. So Shiny working on 3 games, and everything looks really bright for the company. Even though they had some hard times with the Wild 9. After this, Messiah would flop. There would also be Enter the Matrix, and that would be more or less the end of Shiny Entertainment. Here we see an extended article about the people who made the Pro Action Replay, Datel, and they talk about how they reverse engineer things, also like the Rumble Pack, and how other companies are stealing their ideas, so they have to use encryption. And they're very proud of themselves. Again, at their height of their power, with later consoles, less people be interested in cheating with their games or getting memory cards for a cheaper price. Okay, Edge exists 50 years, and they go through every issue briefly, and they describe it. They also go through every year and give a short description of what happened the year. The best parts are asking big people industry what they expect in the future and what they liked the last 4 years, what they didn't like. A lot of them actually read Edge, apparently. And some of the predictions do come out, like the Pentium 1000 being normal. And Peter Molyneux jokes that by the year 2001, Edge Lionhead will finish its first game. Well, ironically, it would take another 3 years. If I recall correctly, I do believe that Fable. Oh no, there's Black and White, of course. That was released in 2000 or something. Okay, so they finished the game a bit earlier. But Lionhead was well known for games being released way after first expected. So yeah, Phil Harrison, Scott Steinberg, Crystal Dynamics. So it's fun to see what they were doing back in '93. Even Miyamoto answered some questions. So there's also the key games of every year. Mizuguchi, who would go on to make Space Channel 9. So Core Design, talking about how they had success with Tomb Raider. So it's in the article we see briefly everything that had happened last 4 years. Hey, Ganbare Goemon, or The Legend of the Mystical Ninja for Nintendo 64, gets an 8 out of 10, deservedly so. Another hit for Nintendo 64. It's an RPG with a lot of side things to do. Very colorful, very funny. So you should check this out. The Super Nintendo version is also great. We'll see that later on. Lots of games in this year. And what I didn't know is that apparently Goemon is named after a historical figure who was executed but wrote a poem right before his death about a pot of stew. Oh no, a pot of boiling oil, apparently. So that's he went into history. Broken Sword 2 is even better than Part 1, according to Edge, getting a 9 out of 10. They love the animation, they love the script. It's everything a click and carry adventure could hope to be in 1997. F197 is more of the same, gets an 8 out of 10. Edge says it's still the best. Croc gets a 6 out of 10, made by Argonaut, the people who made Star Fox, and was Sony's attempt to be a Mario for the PlayStation 1. Did okay, but Spyro did better. Edge gives it a 6. Gun Bullet, a light gun shooter for the PlayStation by Namco. A funny game with very colorful graphics. Ghost in the Shell gets a 7 out of 10. Apparently it's not that bad, even though it has very little to do with the classic movie. So you're in a tank shooting things, apparently. You can also crawl up walls. Not that much about cyborg existential crises. Maybe for the better. Tetrasphere gets a 6 out of 10. Yeah, I guess it was somewhat popular, or was Vectrex was popular. Tetrasphere wasn't that popular. Yeah, it's a 3D version of Tetris. And Edge doesn't like how it's hard to remember all the pieces, so it's not going to be as good as Tetris 1. Marvel Superheroes for the Saturn, yes, which is close to Arcade Perfect. It does benefit using the extra RAM card, but yeah. Marvel, baby. Round Trip. Yeah, this is the 3D game by SNK, and Edge says at least it's different. Not using the typical models, these are more like SUVs. And Samurai Spirit 64, you have an interview with the maker, and some talk about how hard or easy it was to translate the 2D games to 3D. Okay, we're almost done. Now just look at the advertisements for British companies. You see that they keep getting better. Nice to look at least some of them, because there are also stupid ones like this. Can you believe that? Can you operate Windows? Hey, it's the beefy guy. I remember seeing him on TV. And there's Rare, as always. I'll have to scratch my hand, excuse me. Can't hold a camera with an itch in your hand. I should read these comics one day. Okay, so here's Blade Runner for the PC, looking fantastic. Of course, this character looks like Pris. Psygnosis is showing off their Formula 1 games. Okay, so Edge looks back at Legend of Mystical Ninja for the Super Nintendo. Not unlike Zelda 3. And I'll let you read what Edge has to say about it. You should check it out. Street Fighter Collection. I had this for the PlayStation 1. I've got it for Street Fighter Alpha 2, which was, in my opinion, pretty good conversion. But also Super Turbo. So you had, at the time, the two best Street Fighter games on one disc. I don't know if they're arcade perfect, but at the time I was 16, and that was good enough for me. Okay, so here's 2 pages of how to start up a company. This time looking more at how to actually make a game. So the material things, but also the psychological things, like what you should focus on. And the gist of it is that you should be doing your own thing. So most of this I felt like everybody already knew. And here we see that game called Respect Inc. again, a huge flop. Okay, so what do the readers have to say? Somebody's saying that a game that cost £70, which was like $100, should not get a 9 because it's too expensive. Edge simply says, well, you know, we didn't know the price at the time, and we're only going to look at the quality of the game. You get to determine if you think the quality is worth the price you see on the cartridge. Some ethics about emulation. This person's saying it's not going to cost anybody that much money, and I think that is the case. Although nowadays it's quite easy to emulate 3DS games, so that's going to cost Nintendo some money. Person saying that Banjo-Kazooie is actually quite original, and that Edge saying that it's a clone of Mario basically means that almost every game is a clone of some other game. Some person saying it's a shame that the Saturn is doing bad and that they should upgrade it for Virtua Fighter 3, but obviously they won't. Yeah, somebody's saying how the arcades are always better than the consoles. And yeah, this person replying to somebody else saying how the PlayStation, it's a good brand. It's nothing to the thing that's wrong. Okay, the Q&A. Good question. Why was GoldenEye released earlier in Japan than the rest of the world, even though it's obviously also a game for everybody? Edge has no good answer to that. So, yeah, some talk about the new 3D cards. What's the best thing to do? And there we have it. Edge 50. I love this. If you look closely, you'll see that the wedge of cake they take out is in the shape of the E of Edge. That's really cool. And so next month we'll be looking at the JAMA show for these arcade games, and another look at the Saturn. Ooh, what are we going to get out of the Saturn this late into its production? Well, who knows? So that was Edge Magazine issue 50. Good to have you again. And yeah, I managed to get the first 50 issues within half a year time. So I hope to get to 100 in another half a year. And there are 314 issues at the moment of speaking. I'll show you quickly. There I have them. And I have a lot of fun doing this, especially reading them. Making the videos a bit of a hassle, but whatever. Try to keep it as easy as possible. But yeah, I look forward to the next 50, and I guess I'll just keep going until Edge Magazine tells me to stop, because I'm getting too close to their copyright. And well, maybe you recognize these things. If you don't, I'll tell you more about them next time, because I'm going to shut the video. See you then.